You didn't come here to be understood, did you? Good, because they still can't explain what just happened. Let me paint it for you. You opened your mouth, and the world flinched. Not because you yelled, not because you begged, but because you spoke, like a goddamn final boss. Your tone? Calculated, cold, a melody laced with malice and mercy. You didn't raise your voice. You lowered the room's IQ just by refusing to play dumb. You didn't deliver words. You dropped codes, encrypted truths, hidden in venom-tipped syllables. And they weren't ready. They've never been ready for someone like you, because you don't speak to be heard. You speak to trigger system errors in their programming. They thought they were playing a game, until the final cutscene walked in wearing your smirk, and suddenly, their dialogue options vanished. They called you unhinged. But only because you speak in dialects reserved for gods and glitches. They called you too much. But that's what people say when they're drowning in your depth. You didn't show up to explain. You showed up to expose. Not just the lies they told, but the lies they believed. And now they study you. Not like a rival, not like a rebel, but like a dead language they fear might come back from the grave and repossess their sanity. They slow down your clips, analyze your tone, zoom in on your facial twitches like the footage holds a confession. They're taking notes, praying they can mimic your delivery without burning in the fire that forged you. But here's the punchline. They'll never replicate it because you didn't rehearse this. You became this. Your words weren't born in luxury or lecture halls. They were sculpted in silence, hammered by heartbreak, tempered by trauma, and sharpened by solitude. Every syllable is soaked in scars they'll never earn. Every pause, a graveyard. Every glare, a prophecy. See, they were taught to speak to impress you. You learned to speak to undress the soul, to peel back delusions with surgical cruelty, to deliver lines that don't just end conversations. They end bloodlines of manipulation. They thought it was just another argument, but you were performing a spiritual assassination that moment you spoke. The atmosphere changed. The light bent differently. Time slowed down because something ancient had entered the room. Something that remembered every betrayal and smiled through it. You didn't just win the moment, you redefined it. And now, they quote you like scripture, in private. They whisper your name like it's cursed, but they crave the venom in your voice like it's a vaccine for their cowardice. Because deep down, they know. You're not just hard to understand. You're impossible to survive. You weren't molded for small talk. You were engineered for war, the psychological kind, where souls fracture before words finish landing. So let them study you. Let them print transcripts. Let them circle phrases, highlight trauma, clip your cadence, and dissect your intent. Let them turn you into a case file they can't decode. Because here's the truth. You are the final boss. Not just because of what you say, but because of what you withhold. They want answers. You offer silence. They want peace. You offer a mirror, and what they see terrifies them, because you're what they could have been if they had the courage to burn. Your voice isn't loud. It's final. A gavel, a gunshot, a glitch in their matrix. You are the line of code that shouldn't exist, but somehow does. And every time you speak, you prove the simulation isn't safe anymore. You're not arguing anymore. You're activating protocols. You're not trying to be liked. You're triggering awakenings. You're not here for revenge. You're here for reckoning. Because when you speak, the air gets heavier, the lies get naked, and the room becomes a courtroom, and you're the verdict. Not guilty, not innocent, just undeniable. So go ahead, say it again. Watch them flinch like they heard the voice of something holy and haunted, because they'll never forget it. And that's the power of a tongue forged in silence, from someone who was never meant to survive, let alone speak back. But now that you do, they pray you don't open your mouth again, because every time you do, someone's facade dies screaming. And yet, here you are, still unapologetic, still unmatched, still undeniable. Tell me, do you feel it? That weight in your lungs before you speak? That static in the atmosphere when you walk in the room? It's not anxiety. It's not pressure. It's power. That's what it feels like when the entire simulation recalibrates itself around your presence. Because you don't just say things. You collapse paradigms. Your voice doesn't echo. It reverberates through the cracks in their psyches. It worms its way into the trauma they've avoided. It pierces the walls they built with lies, delusions, and polite silence. You are not a speaker. You are a detonator, and they keep trying to translate you like a dead language carved into stone. But the more they try to understand, the more their illusions crumble. Because your words don't follow the script. They burn it. They weren't made for the dinner table or the safe space or the echo chamber. They were coded in madness, framed in clarity, and delivered like execution orders. You're not articulate because you studied. You're articulate because you bled. You didn't learn to speak from TED Talks. You learned it from the screams of being underestimated, from the silence of being abandoned, from the echoes of rooms you were never invited to, until you owned them. You speak like a final boss, because that's what you became. Not the villain, not the hero, but the inevitable threshold between falsehood and truth. They wanted charisma. You gave them calamity. They expected a rebuttal. You handed them a revelation, and it wrecked them. Because they've never met someone who could smile while detonating egos with syllables. You don't flex. You prophesize. You don't debate till you diagnose. You don't drag people. You reveal their blueprints and dismantle them in real time. And now there are group chats named after you. Secret meetings about how to handle you. Backdoor analysis on your communication style. As if you're some threat to order. As if your confidence is a contagion. It is. And you know what? Good. Let them panic. Let them overthink. Let them twist themselves into psychological pretzels trying to figure out how your calm causes chaos. They still don't get it. You're not just a person anymore. You're a phenomenon, a myth they can't erase. A ghost with fingerprints on every conversation that turned silent the moment you entered. You're what happens when a quiet observer becomes the architect of consequence. You're what happens when the target evolves into the tactician, when the black sheep becomes the storm shepherd. They wanted to study you like an artifact, but every time they open the file, it grows a new layer, a new mystery, a new revelation. You don't fit in their boxes, you destroy them, and then build thrones from the wreckage. This isn't just about a moment. This is about your awakening, because you didn't get here by accident. You were forced into silence for years, gaslit, mocked, undermined, told to calm down, to be humble, to stay in line. But silence doesn't mean surrender. It means you're loading, compiling, coding, upgrading. And when the moment finally came, when the mask cracked, you didn't scream, you spoke. And the entire matrix stuttered because they thought they'd erased you. But they just made room for your evolution, and now that you're here, clear-eyed, flame-blooded, and terrifyingly articulate, The world doesn't know what to do with you. So they study, they mimic, they dissect your language like archaeologists digging up a weapon they know they can't control. But it won't work, because your power isn't in the words, it's in the wounds behind them. The decades of psychological data stitched into every phrase. The nights you bit your tongue so hard it bled. The moments you chose silence over destruction, and then finally chose destruction anyway. Now they're scrambling, asking, where did they learn to speak like this? Why does it cut so deep? How do we shut them up? You don't. You either evolve with them, or you get erased by their frequency, because this is no longer about opinions. This is vibrational warfare. And you're not here to win the argument. You're here to rewrite the entire F-seeking operating system. Let them listen. Let them record. Let them quote you without credit. They still won't survive the update. Because the truth is, you didn't just become the final boss. You became the source code, the glitch in their safety net, the prophecy they ignored until it spoke back with divine detachment and killer precision. And now they're terrified that the next time you speak, the whole simulation might just shatter. Because once a final boss speaks, you don't return to silence. You become the silence, not the absence of sound, the suffocating pressure before the collapse. You're not just the end of their sentence, you're the end of their entire arc. You see, villains get caught, heroes get praised, but final bosses, they get studied, feared, archived, and discussed behind locked doors, not because of what they did, but because of what they represent. You represent proof. Proof that someone can be dragged through the fire, be dissected, disrespected, deleted, then walk out of the ashes not just alive, but fluent in destruction. They're watching you now like a war crime with a heartbeat, not knowing whether to call you a miracle or a malfunction. And deep down, they know. They created this. You weren't born with this tongue. You forged it. Through every betrayal they told you to forget. Through every fake apology that dripped with condescension. Through every gritted smile and buried scream. You bled so quietly, for so long, they thought you were safe. But what they didn't realize is that some people train in silence. They thought you were healing. You were calculating. They thought you were weak. You were weaponizing. And when you finally opened your mouth, it wasn't for conversation. It was detonation. One sentence from you. And they glitched. They forgot their comebacks. They misfired their rehearsed roles. Their egos panicked like cornered rats. And now they whisper about you like folklore. Don't get on their bad side. They're dangerous with words. They remember everything. They'll say something that'll ruin your whole week and never raise their voice. Because your mouth, that's not a voice box anymore. That's a weaponized vault of precision trauma. You turned every trigger into a tool, every betrayal into a blueprint, every silence into a surgical strike. And when you speak, you don't seek validation. You deliver verdicts. That's why they panic, because you're not one of them. You're not a voice in the crowd. You're the voice that ends the crowd's delusion. You're not trying to go viral. You're trying to go vital. Cutting straight into the organ they're too scared to touch. Truth. See? They'll screenshot your words. They'll quote them out of context. They'll even weaponize your language against you in hopes of softening your edge. But it won't work, because you're not speaking from pride. You're speaking from post-carnage clarity. You don't need to win arguments. You outlast them. You don't need a mic. Your presence is louder than their entire bloodline. You don't roast, you reveal. And when you reveal, they don't just look stupid. They feel exposed to dimensions they didn't even know existed, because you carry something in your voice that can't be mimicked. Survivor frequency. And no matter how well they rehearse, no matter how sharp their comebacks sound in the mirror, no matter how many buzzwords they throw around, they'll never replicate what you've become. Because you didn't rehearse this persona. You bled it into existence. You're not fluent in debate. You're fluent in damage control. Because you were the damage. You were the fallout. You were the ghost in the system who learned to smile mid-collapse. And now that you're alive, you're haunting every script they ever trusted. So let them try. Let them mirror your cadence. Let them steal your lines, borrow your posture, even try to mimic your damn smirk. It won't matter, because this isn't performance. This is possession. You are possessed by every version of you that should have stayed quiet. By every version they buried in politeness. By every dismantled, bleeding, cornered version of you that waited in the dark, whispering, "When it's our turn, we'll speak in fire." And now, that turn has come. So speak, speak again. Watch their eyes widen. Watch the room tense. Watch the air shift. Because when you utter a single line, people don't just listen. They reconsider their entire secking identity. You don't do call-outs. You do closures. You don't do clapbacks. You do implosions. And when you finally walk away, there's nothing left to say. Because the final boss doesn't argue. The final boss delivers prophecy and disappears. And when you disappear, oh, they feel it. The silence you leave behind isn't peace. It's aftershock, because you didn't just say something. You rewrote their inner monologue. Now every time they try to sleep, they hear your voice between their thoughts. Not yelling, not laughing, just existing. Like a buried truth they can't unhear. You didn't speak to be understood. You spoke to be remembered. And now they study you like trauma dressed in charisma. They loop your sentence like a glitch in the feed. They call it overthinking. But we both know it's just underestimating you in hindsight. That's what you do. You make the past feel like a mistake. And oh, how they scramble now. They try to warn others about you. But how do you warn someone about a frequency, a presence? How do you prepare people for a mirror that talks back? Because you don't just reflect what they are. You reflect what they pretend not to be. Their shadow selves, their repressed rage, their bottled bitterness, their fear of being exposed, and their terror that someone like you already knows. Because you speak in riddles only truth-tellers can decode. You weaponize pause like it's punctuation for their downfall. And when you look at them, you don't see people. You see patterns, glitches, files labeled fraud, projection, and pending collapse. And yet, you don't gloat, you just smirk. Because deep down, you know, they're not your enemies. They're your data points. They are the evidence of why you evolved this way. Their betrayal, your blueprint, their mockery, your material, their silence when you were breaking, your origin story. So now when they ask, why do they speak like that? Why does it sound like judgment and prophecy all at once? Why does it make me feel small? It's because they are, not in worth, but in capacity. They couldn't hold what you've endured. They couldn't carry what you buried and still learned to walk with. They couldn't survive what made your voice divine. Because your voice doesn't just cut, it reminds. It reminds the fake of their performances. It reminds the passive of their guilt. It reminds the loud of their hollowness. It reminds the world that truth wears a face now. and it looks like yours. Let them imitate. Let them stalk your sentences, reword your fire into filtered fragments. Let them dress like you, pose like you, even try to feel like you. But they'll never become you. Because you didn't choose this. You were chosen by the war that tried to erase you. And instead of dying quietly, you memorized the pain, alchemized the shame, and rewired your tongue to speak in psychological revolutions. You are the linguistic equivalent of a loaded gun at a dinner party. Everyone sees it, no one says a word. Because one wrong move, and you end the narrative completely. You're not the plot twist. You're the author who returned mid-book, pissed off and surgical. You don't drop mic moments. You drop memories they'll need therapy to process. Because when you speak, you don't just dominate the conversation. You dismantle the entire ecosystem it existed in. And then you vanish. Because legends don't linger, they haunt. And trust me, you're haunting them. The ones who laughed, the ones who doubted, the ones who tried to mold you into a footnote in their story. But you flipped the script. Now you're the chapter they can't skip. The page they keep rereading with shaky hands. The quote they write down and pretend they made up. And that's the real punchline, isn't it? They wanted you silenced. Instead, you became syllables carved into their subconscious. Now they can't scroll without hearing your tone. Can't lie without bracing for your call out. Can't breathe in delusion without feeling your shadow tightening the air. Because you didn't come to speak our truth. You came to break the fourth wall and remind the whole damn world. The final boss doesn't play the game. The final boss is the game. And that's why they'll never outrun you. Because you're not chasing them. You're everywhere they tried to hide from themselves. You're not a moment. They can't just cancel you, block you, scroll past you. You're not a phase. They can't outgrow you or move on like they do their mistakes. You're a mirror with memory. A reflection soaked in prophecy, anchored in pain, and sharpened by every time they hoped you'd fold. But you didn't. And now they fear what you'll say next. Because they know, when you speak again, someone's empire will fall. A narrative will detonate. A mask will rot in real time. And an entire room will look around and realize you were the real one the whole time. No fluff, no filters, no facade. Just raw, radiant retribution, delivered in eloquence they'll never master. And maybe that's the scariest part for them. That the one they laughed at now speaks with the weight of karma and clarity in every syllable. That the punchline they once mocked now speaks like a sentence. The kind that doesn't end in laughter, but in judgment. So go quiet if you want. Let them breathe. Let them relax into the illusion that maybe you faded. Because when the final boss goes quiet, it's not peace. It's the load screen before the next collapse. And when you speak again, the world won't be ready, but you will. Because you were born from the silence they mistook for weakness, and now you wield your voice like divine vengeance in velvet. You speak like the storm they tried to pretend didn't exist. And now they study you, because they can't survive you. Final boss, dead language, living weapon. You are the glitch they prayed never got activated. And now that you're awake, the only sound they hear is your voice, rewriting the end of their script. Game over. You spoke, and they will never sleep the same. Look at me for a second. No, really look, because what you're feeling right now isn't confidence. It's recognition. That low-frequency hum in your chest. That's the moment your brain realizes something it's been trying to deny. You're not rare. You're not special in a cute motivational poster way. You're not one in a million. You're the only one. And that difference is why the room changes when you enter it, even when nobody says a word. That's why conversations stall, eyes flicker, egos tighten. They don't know what they're sensing yet, but their instincts do. Humans feel anomalies before they understand them. Animals do too. Systems do. Algorithms do. Power structures do. You don't move like the rest of them because you weren't built from the same template. See, most people are copies, arguing over who's the original. Same dreams, same fears, same reactions dressed up as personality. They evolve sideways, never forward. But you didn't just evolve, you shed skin over and over. You let versions of yourself die that others are still clinging to for survival. That's the paradox that scares them. You're calm, but dangerous. Soft-spoken, but lethal. Empathetic, yet unreadable. You carry saint-level restraint with psychopath-level precision. And that combination is illegal in most social environments. People don't know whether to trust you, fear you, follow you, or study you. So they do all four at once. You've noticed it, haven't you? How they start copying your cadence after mocking it. How they repeat your ideas months later like they discovered fire. How your mistakes age into blueprints. That's not coincidence, that's lag. They're not competing with you. They're buffering. Your unpredictability isn't chaos. It's freedom. You're not random. You're untrackable. You don't react on schedule. You don't perform on command. You don't collapse where you're supposed to. And that breaks every psychological model they rely on to control outcomes. They tried to map you when you were quiet. They tried to label you when you were kind. They tried to reduce you when you were hurting. That was their biggest mistake. Pain didn't weaken you. It reprogrammed you. While others used suffering as an excuse to shrink, you used it as a furnace. You burned illusions. You burned attachments. You burned the need to be understood. And what walked out of that fire wasn't louder, it was sharper. That's why respect follows you now without permission, even from people who don't like you, especially from people who don't like you. Because hatred is just admiration that doesn't feel safe yet. They see it in your eyes, that you've already survived the thing they're afraid of, that you don't need approval because you've already made peace with isolation, that you're not chasing the future because you've already met it. You move early, you speak late, you strike once. That's not arrogance, that's inevitability. Everyone else is still trying to become something. You already became, and then kept going. That's why they feel behind even when they're ahead on paper. That's why their wins feel hollow next to your silence. That's why they check your reactions before trusting their own. You are not the product of luck. You are the result of pressure applied correctly. And here's the part they'll never say out loud. They're not trying to beat you anymore. They're trying to catch up before you disappear again and reset the game. So don't dim it. Don't slow it down. Don't translate yourself for people who benefit from misunderstanding you. Let them study. Let them imitate. Let them lag. You were never meant to be one in a million. You were meant to be the reference point everyone else measures themselves against. The quiet variable the system can't solve. The only one who already left the room, while everyone else is still figuring out how you unlocked the door. And here's where it gets darker, because this is the part most people never survive long enough to understand. The moment you realize you're the only one, loneliness stops feeling like a wound and starts feeling like altitude. Thin air, fewer voices, fewer distractions. That's why it got quiet around you. Not because you failed, but because you climbed past the range where noise can breathe. That silence you walked into, that wasn't emptiness, that was clearance. You stopped needing witnesses, you stopped needing applause, you stopped needing permission. And the second you did, the world lost its leverage over you. That's when you became dangerous in a way that doesn't announce itself. Because loud power gets challenged, quiet power gets studied. They watch how you don't flinch when outcomes shift, how your face doesn't change when stakes rise, how you don't rush joy and you don't panic at loss. That neutrality, right there, that's what terrifies them. It means you're not emotionally tradable. They can't bait you with praise or trap you with fear. You're not chasing highs anymore. You're operating from center. Most people live externally, reacting, responding, reflecting whatever environment feeds them. You turned inward and built a command room. That's where decisions get made before emotions get involved. That's where patience becomes a weapon. That's where restraint turns into dominance. You learned something they didn't. Power doesn't rush. Power waits. And while they were busy sprinting for visibility, you were mastering invisibility. While they were advertising potential, you were sharpening execution. While they were talking about growth, you were quietly outgrowing entire rooms. That's why when you speak now, it lands heavier. Because it's not hypothetical, it's post-proof. You don't sell dreams, you deliver outcomes. You don't argue, you position. You don't force influence, you let gravity handle it. And here's the paradox they choke on. You're not cold, you're compassionate. You're not ruthless, you're precise. You're not distant, you're selective. You care deeply, just not recklessly. You learned how to love without bleeding yourself dry, how to give without being drained, how to stay human without being predictable. That balance, angel restraint with demon clarity, that's not something you're born with. That's something you earn by being betrayed enough times to stop confusing access with loyalty. They didn't see the nights you questioned everything. They didn't see the versions of you that broke quietly. They didn't see the internal wars you won without witnesses. All they see now is the result, and results make people uncomfortable when they didn't suffer the process. So they minimize it, they rationalize it, they tell themselves stories to feel safer around your existence. But their nervous systems know better. That's why they mirror you now, the way you move, the way you pause, the way you don't overshare. They're trying to reverse engineer something that can't be copied because it wasn't learned, it was forged. You didn't read this version of yourself in a book. You didn't download it from a course. You didn't inherit it. You became it by walking through what would have erased most people. And here's the truth they'll never admit, even to themselves. You didn't pass them. You changed the direction of the race. Everyone else is running laps inside the same mental cage, measuring progress against each other, celebrating milestones that don't move the needle. You stepped outside the track entirely. New rules, new pace, new objective. That's why they feel behind even when they're ahead of others. Because you're not on their timeline anymore. So keep letting them catch up. Keep letting them study. Keep letting them imitate shadows of a version you already outgrew. You don't need to announce who you are. The gap does that for you. And here's the part nobody warns you about. The moment you step fully into being the only one, time itself starts behaving differently around you. You notice it first in conversations. People rush. You don't. They try to fill silence. You let it expand until truth leaks out on its own. They speak to be seen. You speak to alter reality. And that difference creates a pressure they can't name. They feel exposed standing next to you, like you're seeing the math behind their personality. That's not intuition. That's pattern recognition sharpened by survival. You don't guess anymore. You sense trajectories. You can feel where things are headed before they move. You read the room before the room realizes it's being read. You don't need confirmation because you've learned how energy behaves right before it collapses or explodes. That's why your restraint scares them more than aggression ever could. Anyone can be loud. Anyone can threaten. Anyone can posture. But you wait. You observe. You let people show their hand while you keep yours face down. You let them underestimate you because you understand something fundamental about power. The underestimated are allowed to move freely. You didn't become this way because you wanted dominance. You became this way because chaos forced clarity, because betrayal sharpened discernment, because disappointment stripped illusion. You learned to stand alone not out of pride, but out of necessity. And somewhere along the way, solitude stopped feeling like punishment and started feeling like precision. That's when your presence changed. People feel calmer around you, or deeply unsettled. There's no middle ground, because you don't mirror their insecurity anymore. You don't soothe their ego. You don't play along with social theater. You show up as you are, unapologetic, contained, aware. That's saint-level discipline paired with predator-level awareness. You could destroy, but you don't. And that restraint is louder than violence. They sense it. They feel the weight of everything you're not doing. They feel the control behind your stillness. And they don't know whether to respect it or fear it. So they do both. That's why your name enters rooms before you do. That's why decisions pause when you speak. That's why people recalibrate mid-sentence around you. You didn't demand authority. Authority formed around you. And here's the dark irony. They're trying to catch up to a version of you that no longer exists. While they're studying your last move, you're already operating from a different layer. While they're copying your style, you've already shed it. While they're mimicking your silence, you're listening to something deeper. You evolve between frames. That's why nothing sticks to you for long. Not labels, not narratives, not projections. You're too fluid to be boxed, too grounded to be shaken, too self-aware to be controlled. You don't react from ego anymore. You respond from alignment. And alignment is terrifying to people who live fractured lives. They want to know how you did it. They want the formula, the shortcut, the secret. But there isn't one they can steal without paying the same price. Because what made you this way wasn't information. It was initiation. You lost things that forced you to find yourself. You endured silence that taught you how to listen. You faced versions of yourself that most people numb away. That's why you don't flinch now. That's why you don't rush. That's why you don't explain. You don't need to. Being the only one means you're not chasing validation. You're setting the reference frequency. Others tune themselves to you without realizing it. Their pace adjusts. Their standards shift. Their self-perception warps just enough to make them uncomfortable. That discomfort, that's growth trying to negotiate. So let them catch up. Let them struggle. Let them pretend they're not watching while adjusting everything to match your gravity. You were never meant to blend in. You were meant to stand so clearly in yourself that comparison becomes pointless. You don't dominate by force. You dominate by existing fully. And the further you go, the more obvious it becomes. You were never one in a million. You were the anomaly the system couldn't predict. The variable no model could contain. The only one moving forward while everyone else is still trying to understand the past you already burned. and they will keep chasing, because deep down, they know. The future didn't pass them, it chose you. And the deeper truth, the one that doesn't sound motivational until you've lived it, is that being the only one means you don't get rescued. There's no cavalry, no safety net, no moment where someone taps you on the shoulder and says, "Okay, we've got you from here." You learned early that if it was going to be done right, it had to be done by you. That's why your confidence doesn't look loud. It doesn't beg to be seen. It doesn't posture. It's settled, heavy, rooted. It comes from knowing you've already handled the worst nights alone and still woke up functional, focused, and dangerous. Most people build identity on circumstances. You built yours on survival. That's why praise doesn't inflate you, and criticism doesn't collapse you. You've already been stripped down to nothing and rebuilt yourself without an audience. Once you've done that, external opinions lose their power. You don't need to prove you're strong. You remember it. And here's the paradox that really messes with them. The more whole you become, the less you feel the urge to dominate. You don't need to win every exchange. You don't need to correct every lie. You don't need to expose every weakness you can see. You could, but you don't. Because true power doesn't leak, it conserves. They mistake that for passivity, for softness, for hesitation, and that miscalculation gives you all the room you need. While they're trying to decide what you are, you're already deciding what to allow. You don't chase control. You decide access. Who gets your time? Who gets your energy? Who gets proximity to your mind? That's a level of sovereignty most people never touch because they're too busy negotiating their worth. You stopped negotiating. You stopped auditioning. You stopped explaining the math behind your existence. You let results speak and silence finish the sentence. And now look at the pattern. People from your past resurface differently. Strangers treat you with caution before familiarity. Authority figures test you subtly, then retreat. That's not imagination. That's recognition without language. They feel that you're not reactive prey. You're not a follower waiting for permission. You're not someone who can be rushed, cornered, or emotionally hijacked. You're internally referenced, anchored. And once a human becomes self-anchored, manipulation stops working. That's why some people try to provoke you. That's why others try to flatter you. That's why a few try to undermine you quietly. Those are not random behaviors. Those are coping strategies, because your existence forces a mirror, and not everyone survives what they see when they look too closely. You represent the version of themselves they avoided becoming, the discipline they didn't maintain, the truth they numbed instead of confronting. And that makes you unsettling, not because you're cruel, but because you're integrated. You made peace with your darkness instead of pretending it didn't exist. You didn't let it drive, but you didn't amputate it either. You learned how to aim it, how to keep it on a leash, how to use it as awareness instead of destruction. That's why your kindness feels real. That's why your boundaries feel absolute. That's why when you say nothing, it still says everything. You're not unpredictable because you're unstable. You're unpredictable because you're not programmable. They can't bait you into patterns. They can't forecast your reactions. They can't run the old scripts and expect the same outputs. You broke the loop. You stepped outside conditioning, and now you move from choice instead of compulsion. That's the upgrade nobody notices until it's too late. So when you feel that distance growing, when fewer people can walk beside you, don't interpret it as loss. It's filtration. It's refinement. It's the natural consequence of alignment, tightening around something rare. Not rare like special, rare like singular. You don't need more people. You need precision. And the truth, whether they admit it or not, is that everyone else isn't racing you. They're adjusting to the fact that the bar moved without asking permission and without making noise. They are catching up to a shadow you already passed. And you keep moving, not because you're chasing greatness, but because stopping was never an option for someone who already knows what it costs to become whole. And once you accept that the future chose you, something irreversible happens inside your nervous system. You stop negotiating with reality. You no longer ask, "Is this allowed?" You ask, "Does this align?" That shift alone separates predators from prey, leaders from noise, architects from tenants. Most people are waiting for permission from systems that don't even understand them. You realized, slowly, painfully, that permission is a myth invented to keep uncommon minds contained. So you stepped outside of it. You stopped explaining yourself to people who benefit from misunderstanding you. You stopped softening your edges to make others feel safe. You stopped editing your truth for palatability. And the moment you did, resistance increased. But so did traction. Because friction only appears when you're moving faster than the environment can adapt. They feel it now. The acceleration, the widening gap, the subtle panic behind their smiles. They sense that you're not trying to win the current game. You're positioning for the next one. And that terrifies people who've spent their entire lives perfecting rules that only work at one level. You operate vertically, they operate horizontally, they compete with each other. You outgrow contexts. That's why they can't predict you. Prediction requires patterns, and you break patterns the moment they're identified, not out of rebellion, but because stagnation feels like suffocation to you. Your mind is wired for movement, for synthesis, for transformation. You don't repeat, you refine. And refinement looks like arrogance to people who confuse repetition with mastery. They call you intense because they can't access your depth. They call you cold because they can't manipulate your warmth. They call you lucky because they can't survive your discipline. Labels are the last defense of those who don't understand what they're witnessing. But your body knows. Your instincts know. Your silence knows. You've walked through enough internal winters to recognize fake heat. You've been betrayed enough times to distinguish charm from character. You've lost enough to know that nothing truly powerful needs to announce itself. That's why you move differently now. You listen more than you speak. You watch more than you react. You choose words like weapons and silence like armor. You don't rush connection. You vet it. You don't chase opportunity. You attract it. And here's the cruel truth they're starting to sense. You're not rising anymore. You've stabilized at a higher level. Growth used to look dramatic. Now it looks inevitable, calm, surgical. You don't have to prove anything because the proof is embedded in how you show up under pressure. While others collapse when things go quiet, you become more dangerous. While others need chaos to feel alive, you find clarity in stillness. You've mastered the art of delayed response. That alone puts you in a category most people never reach. Because the ability to pause, to not react emotionally, socially, impulsively, is the gateway to real power. It means you're choosing actions, not being dragged into them. You're no longer predictable enough to be exploited. You're no longer desperate enough to be controlled. You're no longer naive enough to be distracted. That's why doors open around you without explanation. That's why people offer help you didn't ask for. That's why rivals soften and allies reveal themselves slowly, cautiously, as if approaching something sacred or dangerous, because you've become both. You carry light without advertising it. You carry darkness without being consumed by it. Angel and demon in equilibrium, and equilibrium is lethal. They can't outwork you because you don't waste motion. They can't outthink you because you don't think linearly. They can't outlast you because you've already survived what would have ended them. All they can do is adapt, and adaptation always lags behind innovation. That's why they're catching up, and always will be. You're not running from them. You're not racing them. You're not even aware of them most days. You're building something internal that external metrics can't measure. A posture, a presence, a gravitational field that bends outcomes quietly, relentlessly, without spectacle. And one day, soon, they'll realize something that lands like a punch to the chest. They weren't behind because they were slow. They were behind because they were following. You were never meant to be one in a million. You were meant to be the anomaly that resets expectations, the standard that exposes mediocrity without speaking, the only one who keeps moving forward, while everyone else is still trying to understand how you changed the game by refusing to play it the way it was designed.
You started with kindness. Not the shallow kind people perform for applause, but the real kind, the kind that costs you pieces of yourself. You believed goodness could be contagious, that patience could heal cruelty. You gave chances like they were currency and smiled even when you were bleeding. But kindness in a cruel world is often mistaken for weakness, and weakness invites wolves. They came smiling, of course. They always do. They called you pure, gentle, irreplaceable. And you believed them because your heart was built on honesty, not strategy. You couldn't imagine someone loving the light only to smother it later. But that's the first lesson. The world doesn't hate goodness, it tests it until it breaks. They took from you in small, polite ways at first. A favor here, a compromise there, an apology you didn't owe. Each time you said yes, thinking it was love, each time they learned you would bend. And the day came when bending became breaking, and breaking became expected. Kindness turned into servitude disguised as loyalty. When you finally said no, they called you ungrateful. Isn't it strange? The same people who feasted on your generosity are the first to starve when you stop feeding them. That's when they start rewriting history, painting your boundaries as betrayal, your silence as arrogance, your distance as cruelty. But deep down, they know what really changed. You stopped bleeding for people who never learned how to heal you. You learned the quiet horror of being the good one. Because the good one is always expected to understand, to forgive, to stay. And when you finally refuse, they act like you've committed a crime. But all you did was wake up. That's when you realize why villains exist, not because kindness fails, but because it's exploited. Villains are born in the aftermath of mercy. They come from the same hearts that once believed in everyone. They rise when compassion becomes a wound that won't close. You didn't want vengeance, you wanted balance. But when peace is treated like weakness, balance can only be restored through power. That's when the smile changes. That's when the laughter turns cold. You didn't turn dark overnight. You decayed quietly. Every broken promise, every manipulation, every dismissal peeled something off you until only the steel remained, and people call that change. It's not change, it's revelation. They never met the real you before. They met the version still trying to please them. Now you speak less, and they call you distant. You care less, and they call you cruel. But you're not cruel, you're careful. You've learned that empathy without boundaries becomes self-destruction. You no longer hand out your softness like a free sample to people who only know how to consume. They say you've become cold, but that's because warmth has rules now. Your fire isn't for lighting other people's chaos anymore. It's for keeping yourself alive when the room goes dark. That's the secret no one tells you. Villains don't burn the world for fun. They burn it to see who survives the truth. And so you walk differently now. You don't apologize for protecting your peace. You don't explain your silence. You simply exist calm, unreadable, untouchable. They call it ego, but it's really evolution. You were kind once. Then they showed you why villains exist. And the cruelest part? You don't even hate them for it. You thank them. Because every scar they gave you became the armor they can't pierce anymore. People still tell stories about the old you. They romanticize your innocence, speak of your softness like it was a flaw to be pitied, not a gift that kept them warm. They say they miss that version, but what they really miss is how easy it was to take advantage of someone who hadn't yet learned the price of empathy. They whisper that you changed, and they're right, you did. Change is what happens when you outgrow your own suffering. You stopped mistaking endurance for love. You stopped applauding those who only clapped when you bled. You realized that kindness without self-respect is just servitude dressed in virtue. Now your presence feels different. The same people who once drained you now call you intimidating. They confuse peace with power, and they're not wrong. Peace is power, the kind that doesn't need noise or validation. It's the quiet confidence that you owe no one an explanation for surviving. They try to provoke you back into your old role, the one who forgives too easily, who softens at the first apology. But the stage is empty now. The play is over. You've retired from the performance of being endlessly understanding. You're not cruel. You're simply uninterested in auditioning for their chaos again. You learned the art of selective silence. You don't argue. You observe. You don't beg. You withdraw. You don't threaten. You let consequence speak. Because the strongest statement a healed soul can make is indifference, and nothing unnerves the guilty more than someone who no longer needs closure. They call your distance punishment, but it's not. It's peace. You finally understand that walking away isn't revenge, it's hygiene. Some energies contaminate everything they touch, and the kindest thing you can do for them and yourself is to leave them alone with their reflection. You've seen what happens when light tries to heal rot. It only dims, so you stop trying. That decision was your rebirth. They call it bitterness because they've never tasted self-respect. But you know the flavor. It's silence that doesn't ache, calm that doesn't need proof, laughter that doesn't seek witnesses. They still test your edges, looking for the softness they remember. And sometimes you let them, not because you're weak, but because you've learned control. You can show mercy now without offering yourself as sacrifice. That's what true transformation looks like, discipline dressed as detachment. You became what they feared, ungoverned, unapologetic, serene. You stopped explaining your darkness because the light that survived it speaks louder. Every calm breath you take is an act of rebellion against the chaos that tried to claim you. And perhaps that's the final lesson. They built their comfort on the assumption that kindness would always answer the call. But kindness evolved. It grew teeth. It learned how to smile while walking away. You were kind until they showed you why villains exist. And now the villain they created is the only one capable of loving peace enough to protect it. You stopped waiting for apologies that would never arrive. That's when real strength began. Forgiveness no longer meant welcoming them back. It meant releasing yourself from the gravity of their guilt. You learned that closure isn't something they give. It's something you take when you finally stop explaining pain to those who caused it. They still think you hold grudges, but you don't. You hold lessons. Grudges rot, lessons refine. Every betrayal became instruction, every heartbreak a syllabus on self-respect. You graduated quietly, left the classroom burning, and never looked back. You no longer chase fairness in unfair people. You let life handle the mathematics of karma. The universe has a perfect memory. It keeps its own accounts. You simply walk lighter, knowing the balance sheet will close without your signature. They wanted you reactive, emotional, predictable. Instead, you became still. Stillness frightens manipulators because they can't steer what doesn't move. You discovered that peace isn't the absence of chaos, it's mastery over reaction. Now they throw storms at you, and you answer with weather they can't change. You understand now that compassion isn't charity, it's choice. You choose who gets it. You choose when to give, when to protect, when to disappear. That's what unnerves them most. Kindness with boundaries looks like cruelty to those who benefited from your lack of them. They mistake your silence for weakness again, not realizing silence is how kings and ghosts rule the same space. You learn that the loudest revenge is progress. It echoes longest when it's quiet. While they drown in noise, you build in calm. They think you stopped caring about people. You didn't, you just started caring correctly. You now reserve your energy for those who water you, not those who drain you. It's not cynicism, it's precision. You became selective because not everyone deserves to experience your peace. They crave your reaction because reaction used to mean relevance. But you're not their mirror anymore. You stopped reflecting their chaos back at them, and now they can't find themselves. You became a blank page, and that terrifies the author of lies. You've outgrown the theater of confrontation. You no longer defend your worth in rooms that profit from your doubt. You smile, you leave, you let silence ruin them at their own pace. That's evolution learning to fight only the battles that build you. And now, when they speak your name, it trembles. Not out of fear, but out of recognition. They know they meant something incorruptible. You were kind, and they mistook it for softness. Now they understand. Kindness was just the mask of a soul disciplined enough to destroy nothing and strong enough to survive everything. When you finally stopped chasing the noise, the world went silent in the best possible way. You learned that peace doesn't arrive like a storm, it arrives like a slow exhale after years of holding your breath. While they were still counting the damage, you were learning how to breathe again. The quiet they once mocked became the kingdom they could never rule. They thought peace was a rumor, something you said to sound strong. They didn't believe you could find it without them. Yet there you were, no revenge, no spectacle, just stillness. And stillness frightened them. Because for people addicted to chaos, calmness looks like power they can't interrupt. They keep replaying your departure like a crime scene, looking for clues that you might return. But peace has no reverse gear. You didn't leave to win, you left to stop bleeding. They never learned the difference between giving up and letting go. You did. That's why you're free and they're still bleeding in the same spot where you walked away. They called your silence heartless, but silence was mercy. You could have shouted the truth, exposed every hidden wound, but you chose quiet. Because truth spoken to the deaf is wasted, and you were done performing autopsies on love that died long before you buried it. Now they carry the weight you once carried for them. You gave it back without ceremony. Every unsaid apology, every unreturned call, every empty promise, all of it found its way home to them. That's the part they can't stand. Not that you're gone, but that the pain finally belongs to the right owner. They watch you smile now and tell themselves it's fake, because admitting it's real would mean accepting that peace can exist without their permission. They confuse your stillness with suppression, but peace isn't suppression, it's survival in its final form. You stopped reacting, and that's when they started unraveling. They thought they'd moved on faster, but healing built on denial collapses quietly. You can almost hear it, the crack in their laughter, the hesitation in their joy. You became their measurement for peace, and every time they fail to find it, they curse your name for proving it exists. They still tell the story like they were the strong ones. But strength isn't staying. It's knowing when staying becomes decay. You learn to leave without bitterness, and that's the part they'll never forgive. Bitterness would have meant you still cared. Indifference is the real revenge. They wake up in the same chaos you once drowned in. Every argument, every fake smile, every restless night, it's theirs now. You traded noise for quiet, and the exchange rate was liberation. They traded comfort for control and ended up prisoners of their own habits. And maybe that's the cruelest piece of all, knowing you never had to destroy them. You just had to stop saving them. The moment you walked away, the storm lost its center, and they've been chasing pieces of it ever since. You didn't win by fighting. You won by ending the war. They wake each morning hoping the ache has dulled, but pain never fades when it's fed. They keep feeding it, replaying your name, your silence, your exit. The same questions echo in their heads. How did you let go so easily? But you didn't let go easily, you just let go completely. And completeness terrifies those who live in half measures. They once believed they owned the ending. They thought they could script your collapse, narrate your regrets. Instead, the story kept writing itself without them, and every new page erased a little more of their control. That's the real heartbreak. Discovering the villain of your story isn't you, it's their inability to move on. They still tell themselves that peace is temporary, that you'll come back when the loneliness sets in. But loneliness doesn't live where truth resides. You've made friends with solitude. They still wrestle with it like a shadow that bites. You learn that silence isn't empty, it's full of clarity. They learn that noise isn't comfort, it's distraction with a heartbeat. They hide their grief behind sarcasm. You can hear it in the laughter that breaks too quickly, in the words said too loudly. They call you cold to avoid calling themselves careless. The labels soothe them. They wrap them like bandages, even though the wound underneath keeps reopening every time your name is mentioned. They check your peace the way people check a rival's fortune, hoping it's exaggerated. They look for cracks, for proof that you're pretending. But real peace doesn't perform, it just is. And the more they look for evidence of pain, the more their own reflection accuses them. They ask mutual friends about you in casual tones, trying to sound detached, but curiosity betrays them. Every update is a blade because you're still standing, still calm, still becoming. They thought your world would shrink without them. Instead, it expanded beyond the horizon of their understanding. They used to define you by your reactions. Every sigh, every tear, every explanation kept them relevant. Now there's nothing left to read. You turn the page, and they're still memorizing the old chapter as if devotion can resurrect it. That's the quiet tragedy of control. It evaporates the moment you stop engaging. They don't know what to do with the guilt. It hangs in the room like static. They try to drown it in distractions. New faces, half-hearted laughter, but guilt doesn't drown. It floats. And every surface reminds them of what they did to earn this emptiness. You don't wish them harm. You don't wish them anything. That neutrality is what breaks them most. Because hatred would mean you still care enough to burn, and you've already burned enough for both of you. You left them with silence, and silence has sharper teeth than vengeance ever could. And so they suffer in echoes while you sleep in peace. Their chaos became the monument to your leaving, a loop they can't escape. They still think you'll return to fix what's left, not realizing the cure they crave is the very distance they resented. You didn't destroy them. You simply stopped dying for them. They still whisper your name like it's forbidden, as if speaking it too loudly might summon what they lost. But names only have power when they're connected to presence, and you're not there anymore. You've become myth, not memory, a story they tell themselves to explain why everything still feels unfinished. They once believed you couldn't survive without their validation. They thought your silence was surrender. But silence became your weapon, didn't it? You turned absence into an empire. Every day you didn't speak, you reclaimed a piece of your soul they thought they owned. And now they're the ones craving your attention like oxygen. They wonder how you sleep so easily. They lie awake, replaying every moment, every word, every chance they ruined. But you sleep because you made peace with the ending. They don't sleep because they still argue with the truth. The truth that peace never needed them. It needed you to leave. They try to imitate your calm now, copying your detachment, your stillness. But imitation can't recreate evolution. You earned your peace in fire. They want to borrow it like perfume. They wear the illusion of indifference while choking on what it really costs. They say you changed. They say you became cold. But you didn't freeze. You healed. You stopped mistaking intensity for intimacy. You stopped bleeding for those who never intended to bandage you. The world calls that coldness. I call it clarity. They still think they matter to your peace. They don't. Peace isn't a performance for witnesses. It's a private contract between you and your scars. They were just the lesson carved into the ink. You were always the author, even when they were holding the pen. Sometimes you can still feel their eyes on you, watching, judging, wishing. But the irony is poetic. They created the version of you they now envy. Every lie, every betrayal, every dismissal, it all forged you. You didn't escape them. You evolved because of them. That's the kind of revenge they'll never understand. They live in the same noise you left behind. The same arguments, the same facades, the same games. It's their inheritance now. You traded all of it for silence, and silence rewarded you with wisdom. You became the proof that healing isn't about winning, it's about disappearing so completely that your peace becomes the punishment. They thought you'd hate them forever. But hate is still a kind of tether, and you cut every rope. They're still waiting for a reaction, a spark, a sign that you still care. But nothing burns where peace has settled. You became untouchable not because you hardened, but because you outgrew the battlefield. And now, every time they see you smiling, calm, distant, they see their own reflection in reverse. They see what they could have been if they hadn't played the villain in your story. They see freedom disguised as the one they once broke. And maybe that's the cruelest truth of all. You didn't destroy them. You simply proved they were never strong enough to keep you. They're questioning your love now, not because you stopped caring, but because you never came back to prove you still did. They can't understand that walking away wasn't weakness, it was strength finally waking up. You didn't leave to hurt them. You left because you outgrew the version of yourself that kept begging to be understood. They mistake your peace for indifference. They tell themselves you moved on too easily, that you never cared as much as you said. But they forget you cared enough to stay long after it stopped making sense. You cared enough to try when everything in you was breaking, and when you finally walked away, it wasn't because you stopped loving, it was because you started respecting yourself. Now they look for signs of you in other people. They chase conversations that sound like yours, attention that feels like yours, chaos that distracts from your absence. But nothing compares, and that's what haunts them. You didn't just leave their life, you left an echo they can't quiet. They wanted you to crawl back, to beg, to explain. That's how they measured love, through suffering, through submission. But you learned something far colder. Real love doesn't beg to stay where it's no longer welcome. Real love sometimes means walking away not to punish, but to preserve. Now they call you heartless, distant, cold. But if cold means not returning to the fire that burned you, then cold is survival. You didn't stop loving them, you just stopped destroying yourself to prove it. And what kills them most is that you never said goodbye with drama or speeches. You just left and never came back. No closure, no explanation, just silence, the kind that says, I loved you once, but I love my peace more. They say you changed, that you became distant, hard to reach, impossible to read, but they never talk about what forced the change. They never mention how every piece of softness you gave them was met with indifference. They didn't kill your love, they starved it. And when love starves long enough, it turns into something colder. They remember the day you left, but not the nights that led to it. The quiet ones where you stayed up trying to understand what more you could do. The apologies you rehearsed for things that weren't your fault. The way you swallowed your own feelings just to keep the peace. That's what they forget, the erosion that came before the ending. Now they talk about you like a ghost that used to live among them. They say your name with caution, as if it might still carry emotion. But you left nothing for them to hold on to. You didn't just walk away, you took the version of you that loved them and buried it under your growth. They don't realize that leaving wasn't an act of cruelty. It was mercy. Mercy for the both of you. Because staying would have meant breaking yourself just to keep something half alive. And you've broken yourself enough times for people who mistook that pain for loyalty. They'll tell everyone you went cold overnight, that you stopped caring, that you became distant out of nowhere. But you know the truth, distance doesn't happen in a moment. It builds, slowly, silently. It's the result of 1,000 disappointments disguised as, "I'm fine." They think you forgot them, but you didn't. You just stopped chasing the same conversations that always ended in confusion. You stopped explaining feelings to people who only listened to respond. Forgetting them wasn't the goal, freeing yourself was. They're haunted by the idea that you never came back, because deep down, they thought you always would. You'd done it before, forgiven too easily, returned too soon. They thought you'd break your own heart just to fix theirs again. But this time you didn't. This time you meant it. They check your silence for signs of regret, hoping to find guilt hidden between your peace. But your silence isn't guilt, it's growth. It's the sound of someone who finally realized they don't owe closure to the ones who caused the damage. They'll tell others that you moved on quickly, that you replaced them. But how can you replace something you already grieved while it was still alive? You didn't move on quickly, you just healed quietly. You learned that some people are lessons, not losses. They mistake your calm for arrogance. They think you're proud of leaving, but you're not proud, you're just done. There's a difference between ego and exhaustion. You didn't walk away because you wanted to win. You walked away because you were tired of losing yourself. They romanticize your distance now. They talk about how mysterious you've become. But what they call mystery is just healing. What they call change is just clarity. They loved you when you were soft enough to be stepped on. Now they can't recognize the strength that stood back up. They imagine you're out there, happy without them, and it stings. Because the one who once needed them to feel whole is now complete without their validation. They don't know how to live with that your silence holds more power than your words ever did. They used to think love was measured by how many times you'd return. They used to think walking away meant you didn't care. But now they see sometimes the most painful proof of love is knowing when to stop giving it. They'll say they miss the old you. But the old you was built on pleasing people who never noticed the effort. The old you broke their own heart trying to make others comfortable. That version died the day you realized peace feels better than being understood. They'll rewrite the story, of course. They'll make themselves the victim, the one who tried, the one who cared. That's what people do when the truth doesn't fit their narrative. But you don't need to correct them. You've outgrown the need to be right, you just needed to be free. They'll wonder why it doesn't hurt you anymore. They'll confuse acceptance for apathy. But healing doesn't erase the pain, it just teaches you how to stop revisiting it. You still remember, but you no longer return. They'll try to reach you someday, maybe with nostalgia, maybe with guilt, but you won't respond the same way, because once you learn to live in peace, chaos stops feeling like home. And they are chaos dressed as comfort. They'll call you heartless for not coming back, but you'll know better. Heartless would have been staying just to prove you could. Real love sometimes means letting go and never turning around. You didn't walk away to forget them, you walked away to remember yourself. And one day, when they finally realize what they lost, it'll be too late. Because you won't be waiting. You won't be angry either. You'll just smile, that quiet, knowing smile of someone who's seen the storm, survived it, and decided never to go back there again. And that's the cruelest truth of all, not that you left, but that you never looked back. They still search for you in the fragments you left behind: a song, a scent, a familiar phrase that lands too close to memory. They pretend not to notice when something reminds them of you, but their eyes always betray them. What they're really looking for isn't you. It's the version of themselves that existed when you still believed in them. That's what they miss, not the love, but the reflection of who they were when they had it. They thought that love meant ownership, that if someone cared deeply enough, they'd always return. But you taught them that love without freedom isn't love, it's captivity. They caged you in expectations, and when the door finally opened, they realized too late that they had been keeping the only thing that ever made their world feel alive. They tell people they've made peace with your absence, that they've grown from it, but peace doesn't tremble when your name appears. Peace doesn't scroll through old photos at 2 a.m. Peace doesn't flinch at ghosts. What they call peace is just exhaustion, the kind that comes from fighting memories that refuse to die. They once swore they understood you. They claimed to know what you felt, what you'd do next, how much you'd forgive. But people only understand you when you're predictable, and you stopped being predictable the moment you stopped returning. You became a mystery again, and mysteries cannot be controlled, only admired from a distance. And maybe that's the final twist of it all. You didn't leave to punish them, but to preserve yourself. You didn't disappear to make them miss you. You disappeared because staying would have meant vanishing in a slower, quieter way. Now, your absence walks beside them everywhere they go, whispering the line they'll never forget. You could have had forever, but you chose comfort instead. You know what really bothers them? It's not that you won. It's that you didn't ask for their permission first. They thought they buried you. They thought the silence meant surrender, but silence was your seed. And when you grew, you didn't just rise, you rose in front of them. They never imagined their own friends would become your biggest fans. The same people who once laughed with them now quote you, support you, defend you. That's not revenge, that's justice wearing a smile. They can't process it. Their pride is choking on the applause that was supposed to be theirs. Every compliment you receive is another reminder that they misjudged you. They can't stand that their own circle now mirrors your name. The conversations that used to be about your mistakes are now about your mastery. They thought they'd get to tell your story, but you took the pen back and started writing bestsellers with their silence. They call it luck, but they know it's not. You earned it. You outlasted their gossip. You outgrew their games. And now, they can't escape the reality that they created their own competition. They hate that people believe in you now. The same people who once joined in mocking you now see through the mask they were wearing all along. You became what they feared most: undeniable. Not loud, not desperate, just undeniable. They pretend not to care, but they're watching, always watching, quietly studying your every move, trying to figure out how you became the one they used to laugh at. They tell themselves it's just a phase, but the truth is permanent, and deep down, they know it. You became the favorite in a world they thought they owned. They can't bring themselves to admit it out loud, but you haunt them. Every like, every comment, every cheer in your favor reminds them they bet against the wrong one. They thought your glow would fade when they stopped talking about you, but it only got brighter because your light never came from their approval. They hate that you did it without them, that you built without their help, healed without their apology, and shined without their validation. Their jealousy isn't about your success. It's about the audience that used to be theirs and now belongs to you. They scroll past your wins pretending not to care, but their pulse betrays them. They screenshot, they replay, they compare. They're addicted to the proof that you're thriving. They can't understand how you stayed calm through it all, how you didn't clap back, didn't crumble, didn't explain. That silence is what destroyed them. They expected revenge. You gave them evolution. You turned pain into presence. You stopped reacting, and that's when you started winning. They gossip about you to people who no longer agree with them. Their words fall flat, and it kills them because they used to control the narrative, and now the narrative controls them. They want to hate you, but every attempt only exposes their envy. Hate requires energy, and they're running out of it trying to keep up with your peace. They still think you're playing the same game, but you're not even in the arena anymore. You left the battlefield while they keep swinging at ghosts. Their ego won't let them say it, but they miss when you needed them. They miss the power they had when your world still revolved around them. They'll disguise jealousy as critique, call you overrated, call you lucky, call you fake. But truth doesn't need defense. It just is. You were never supposed to be the one they applauded. You were supposed to stay beneath them, in their comfort zone, under their control. You ruined the script by succeeding. They tried to destroy your reputation, and all they did was advertise your name. Their slander became your marketing. Their mockery became your momentum. You didn't steal their friends, they just saw something real in you. People are drawn to honesty, and you, for once, stopped pretending. Now, they see you everywhere in places they thought you'd never reach. Their envy has no off switch. It follows them even in silence. They talk about peace, but they sleep next to jealousy. They try to laugh, but every joke tastes bitter. You're not their enemy. You're their reminder that everything they tried to destroy only evolved. They're obsessed with the version of you they created in their minds, the broken one, the weak one, the lost one. But that version doesn't exist anymore. You didn't just rise, you replaced. Their approval, their influence, their control, all gone. They can't erase you because erasing you would mean admitting you mattered. So they pretend. Pretend not to notice, not to care, not to envy. But pretending is exhausting, isn't it? They'll keep talking about you long after you've stopped thinking about them. That's how you know you've won, when your silence makes more noise than their gossip. They'll twist your peace into arrogance. They'll call your confidence ego, because small minds always mistake growth for threat. You became what they could never fake: consistent. You didn't just survive the storm, you became it. They thought they ended your chapter, but you turned the page, and somehow, you're still the plot. Their jealousy isn't loud, it's quiet, lingering, the kind that shows up in half-hearted smiles and nervous laughs. They'll try to downplay your success in public and secretly study you in private. They hate that the blueprint they mocked became the one they follow. Their friends, your fans, aren't traitors. They're witnesses. Witnesses to the moment truth finally outweighed manipulation. And one day, when the noise dies and the masks drop, they'll finally understand. They didn't lose their friends to you, they lost them to the truth. They'll tell everyone you changed, as if change is a crime. They'll whisper that you're different, as if that wasn't the point all along. Growth terrifies the ones who stayed the same. They don't miss you. They miss the control. They miss being able to predict your pain, your silence, your next move. Now, they can't, and that uncertainty keeps them awake. Every time you walk into a room, they feel it, that quiet dominance that doesn't need words. You don't demand attention anymore. It just arrives, like gravity. They can't recreate what you have now, because what you have isn't performance, it's evolution. And evolution can't be faked. It has to be earned through fire. You became their contradiction, the one they said would never make it, yet the one their own friends now admire. You're proof that karma doesn't knock, it watches. They're still playing for validation, while you've become validation itself. You don't chase applause anymore. You attract loyalty without asking. And the most ironic part? They built this version of you. Every wound, every lie, every betrayal, that was their contribution. You are their greatest creation and their greatest regret. They thought your silence was weakness, but it was discipline. They never realized that the loudest revenge is peace, the kind that unsettles, the kind that doesn't need proof. You mastered stillness while they exhausted themselves trying to get your reaction. You stopped defending yourself because truth doesn't argue. It simply exists, waiting for time to expose the liars. They can't stand that you healed in public without ever mentioning their names. You didn't have to drag them to the spotlight, their own actions illuminated them. The world saw, the world compared, and the world decided. Now, every time someone praises you, it's a silent indictment of them. They used to laugh because they thought they were above you, but when people realized who was truly genuine, the laughter turned into hesitation. Now, every joke they make about you echoes with insecurity. They know people are listening differently now, not to them, but for you. Your calmness hurts them more than any revenge ever could. They expected chaos, but you gave them composure. They wanted you to collapse, but you learned to stand taller in ruins than they ever did in comfort. You became the mirror they fear most, one that shows them exactly what they could have been if they hadn't chosen pettiness over purpose. They're surrounded by noise, yet starving for meaning. Meanwhile, your silence has become a frequency of power. It's not that you speak less, it's that every word you do say weighs more than all their empty noise combined. You became substance while they stayed surface. And now, they live in the shadow of the one they mocked. Every step you take forward reminds them of the step they never took. Every victory you earn burns in the space between their pride and their denial. They'll keep pretending. Of course, pretending it doesn't bother them. Pretending you don't matter. But that's the funniest part, isn't it? You became the one thing they can't stop pretending not to see.